It's funny how sometimes the most powerful ideas get packed into just a couple of words. And there's this one phrase, one thing, that just keeps popping up in some of the most ancient texts you can find. Every single time, it's pointing to something absolutely essential. So today, we're going to dig into that using a fascinating essay from 1947 by Arthur Pink as our guide. I mean, it really makes you stop and think, right? It cuts through all the noise, all the stuff we worry about every day. So what is it? What's the one thing that, if you had it, would just change everything? And on the flip side, if you were missing it, would make everything else feel kind of empty? Yeah, let's get into that. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to look at this idea from four totally different angles. First, we'll talk about what it means to be missing that one crucial thing. Then, we'll switch gears and look at the sheer confidence that comes from knowing one thing for sure. After that, we'll get into the power of a single-minded focus. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at the one promise that's said to be unbreakable. Okay, first up, let's talk about a guy who, on the surface, looked like he had totally won at life. I mean, this is a character from the Gospel of Mark who was the poster child for success. He seemed to have it all dialed in, but, well, as you're about to see, what you see on the outside isn't always the whole story. I mean, just look at this list. The guy's resume was, well, perfect. He was a ruler, so check. He had status. A squeaky clean moral record, check. He wasn't some quiet seeker either. He was fearless about it, running up in public, even kneeling. You can tell he was genuine. He was eager. So you look at all that on paper, and you have to ask, what else is there? And yet, despite that flawless exterior, that perfect resume, it all comes down to this one line. This one sentence that changes the entire story. With everything he had going for him, there was still one fatal flaw. Just one missing piece, and it made the whole thing fall apart. And this slide just lays out his internal struggle so clearly. It's like a tug of war, right? On one hand, you've got his good intentions. He really did want to find eternal life. But on the other hand, there was his attachment to his stuff, his great wealth. He was trying to have it both ways, serve two masters, God and money. And he basically gets told, nope, you can't do that. So he walks away sad. And you realize his problem wasn't what was in his bank account. According to the text, the real issue was what was in his heart. It just wasn't fully in it. His loyalties were still tied to all his earthly possessions. So the one thing he was really lacking, it was a heart that was truly all in, one that put that higher purpose before literally everything else. Okay, so that's the story of lacking one thing. Now, let's flip the script. We're going to move from what's missing to what is known with absolute certainty. We're shifting from a story about a hole in someone's life to a story about a rock-solid foundation. And here it is, this incredible, powerful statement from a man in the Gospel of John. This guy was born blind, and after he's miraculously healed, he gets surrounded by doubters, by skeptics, people grilling him on how it happened. But his answer isn't some complicated theological argument. It's just a simple, undeniable fact about his own life. So his story is actually super simple when you break it down. Step 1, something absolutely life-changing happens to him. Step 2, right away, he's hit with doubt and opposition. People are trying to tear his story apart. And step 3, his only response, his only defense is his own experience. He just points to the results. And that's really the core of it, isn't it? He couldn't explain the mechanics of it. He had no idea about the how, but he didn't have to. All he knew was that 1 minute he was in darkness, and the next he was in the light. His knowledge wasn't theoretical. It was based on the most powerful proof there is, a clear before and an undeniable after. And that makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, for you personally, when you've experienced a huge change in your own life, something you know is real, how much does it matter what other people say? Can that personal experience be the most powerful proof of all? All right, so we've talked about lacking one thing, and we've talked about knowing one thing. Now we're going to explore what it means to need only one thing. And what's really cool is how this idea of a singular focus can be like the perfect cure for a life filled with stress and anxiety. So this idea comes from that well-known story about two sisters, Martha and Mary. You've got Martha, who's running around, totally stressed out, worried about a million things. And then you have her sister, Mary, who is just sitting, listening, being present. The one thing that was needed in that moment, it was choosing that connection, that presence, over all the frantic busy work. And you see the same idea of a singular driving purpose echoed here with the Apostle Paul. His whole mission boils down to this one thing I do. I press forward. But here's the kicker. A huge part of pressing forward is forgetting what is behind. It makes sense, right? It's pretty hard to run a race if you're constantly looking over your shoulder. But it's not quite that simple, and I love this distinction. Forgetting doesn't mean you get amnesia about your past. The source actually makes a brilliant point. You should remember certain things, like past blessings to keep you grateful, and past failures to keep you humble. But the things you need to forget, your past successes. Why? So you don't get lazy, so you don't get complacent. It's this incredible balancing act. Okay, for our last section, we're gonna bring it all together. This is where it all leads to a big idea about faithfulness and patience. And this time, the one thing tackles a struggle I think we can all relate to, the struggle of waiting and wondering if the things you've been promised will ever actually happen. And it starts with this line from the second epistle of Peter, "Be not ignorant of this one thing." It's kind of like a friendly warning, a heads up. It's saying, hey, listen up, because if you can grasp this one concept, it will completely change how you think about time and waiting and all those delays in your life. And here's the mind-bending idea, that God's clock ticks a whole lot differently than ours. From a divine perspective, 1,000 years could be like a single day. So what feels like a painful, impossibly long wait to us, well, in the grand scheme of things, it might just be a blink of an eye. It really puts our impatience into perspective, doesn't it? So the big takeaway here, the core message, is to not mistake a delay for a broken promise. The source makes it super clear. God isn't slack or forgetful. It's not negligence. The idea is that there's a bigger picture, a perfect timing that we, from our little vantage point, just can't see. And this all leads to the final powerful testimony. This is from Joshua, a leader who is looking back over his entire life and the history of his whole nation. And after seeing everything play out, this is his conclusion. This is his verdict. Not one thing has failed. Every single promise was fulfilled. I mean, you can't get a more powerful confirmation of faithfulness than that. So we've looked at the one thing you might lack, the one thing you can know for sure, the one thing you should focus on, and the one thing you can always trust. After all that, the journey kind of brings us right back to the beginning, to you. It all boils down to this one last question. In your life, right now, what is your one thing?